Without risk management, you will fail. Without risk management, you're not going to produce consistent results on the charts. You need to define yourself. It doesn't have to be the same as mine, same as anyone else's. You need to define a set of rules that you follow every single day on the charts to provide consistent results to help you become profitable. So I'm going to share today my personal risk management settings and what rules I have set out for myself with my personal strategy. Everyone's risk management rules for themselves will change depending on their trading style, their psychology, their trading strategy, everything. But for me, with my rejection block strategy, I have slightly different risk management settings and profile to other people. So, first things first, when I see the most A plus setup, I will be risking the most. So, for example, we've got these trades here. These ones are not A plus setups. They're decent setups, not A plus. So, again, in this market structure, we was clearly bullish. So again, looking for a short isn't the smartest thing, but if a short if a short presents itself, I don't mind taking it because they're small positions. So right here, how would I risk manage? I've got a bearish rejection block. We'll mark out from the high to the low. Now here, we do not have the golden zone aligning with the CE. Sometimes it taps CE. It taps the golden zone without touching CE. So what I do is I'll set one limit order at the rejection block and then another limit order at the CE where both stop losses are at the rejection block. So it'll be a slightly bigger risk, but more confluence and probability of actually having a successful trade. So first position would be like this, targeting a recent draw of liquidity. So that'll be this low. Second entry would be this, put an entry on CE as well. Put an entry on the CE, put an entry on the actual rejection block itself. So I would have eventually caught both of these full moves because I would have been in both positions. And then let's say, for example, because it happens quite often, sometimes we just come up, touch the golden zone, and then dump to a full take profit without hitting the CE. So next, so like this is why I decided to change my risk management to this. So let's say if it hit CE and it aligned with the golden zone, I would be risking 250 because it's an A plus setup. In this scenario, I would probably put a one single contract here. So it'd be like a 70 minus $70 stop loss. And then if I put my second limit order of like 2 or 3 contracts on the CE, it might lose me like 150. So I'm risking around 200 in total, but I have 2 limit orders to ensure the probability of getting tapped in. Also, whilst I'm at it, I'm going to change the golden area here as well, because these all apply. Another scenario presented itself a few minutes later. Again, it doesn't look too good because it was quite choppy, but still played out. We had a 3-minute rejection block. You'd mark out from the high to the low. And then in this scenario, the golden zone sits in between the CE. It sits in line with the CE of the rejection block. So in this case, and this is after 10 a.m., so we've already had our 10 a.m. manipulation. So in this case, it's a very good setup. I'll be happy to risk slightly more. And then we'll just be targeting a recent draw of liquidity, which would be this 3-minute low. Obviously, you clearly could have just kept going and going, but first draw of liquidity would have been here. And now the reason I would risk right here $250 in one position with 4 or 5 contracts, because we manipulate up with 10 a.m. We sweep out some 1 minute low resistance liquidity, form a bearish rejection block, then the high to the low before we get a retest aligns with the golden zone and it sits in between the CE of the rejection block. So that means it's much higher confluence. And then it also means I don't need to put a limit order here and here. I can just straight away slap my limit order in the rejection block CE and let it play out from there. So I would put my limit order right here, stops at the rejection block, chops around a little bit, then eventually dumps straight to full TP. Then we could have kept on going to these next lows, these next lows, these next lows. Oh, sorry. These next lows, these next lows. And I mean, it literally just kept on going for the entire session. Like, this trade eventually dumped for a 33 risk to reward. Literally, like, it just dumped the whole session and went through all of this pump that we got yesterday. So if I make a note of it, risk 250 if the golden zone aligns with the C of the rejection block. Let's stop loss at the wick of the RB. Give or take 2 points. Now, the reason I give or take 2 points is because more often than not, I'll put my stops at the top of the RB, will come up, re-sweep the rejection block, then dump to full take profit, and that's just like rage bait. So, I mean, I think it's just a lot smarter. You risk, I don't know, 20 or 30 more dollars, a tiny bit more of your position, just to have that little bit of extra security in your trade. Now, this is a personal one for me. Not everyone does it. If the trade presents itself before 10 a.m., slightly de-risk. Because I like seeing rejection blocks play out and rejection block manipulation into distribution happen after the 10 a.m. manipulation. So if it happens during market open before 10 a.m., it could still be an A+ setup. I would just slightly de-risk, just because the main strategy is trading after 10 a.m. But if a good setup presents itself before, I won't miss out on it. If the golden zone does not align with the C of rejection block, but is still within its one limit order at golden zone and one limit order at the And now I've already went over this one. Pretty self-explanatory. I already explained it before. But yeah, the reason I do this is because I used to always set my limit order at the CE only. And there's been so many times that we come just below the CE, and then dump to full take profit, and I don't get in the move. So now we've went through how much we'll risk based on setups. If win greater than 250 on the day, get off the charts. Same applies for a loss of 250. So for myself, I do not let myself lose more than $250 a day. So that's how much I'm willing to lose a day. Sometimes I win less, sometimes I lose less. Sometimes I will lose $100 and still get off for the day because there are no more setups. But let's say I'm looking at the charts, I see my setup, it doesn't play out, I lose. If I lose $100 on that setup, I'm willing to risk another 150 to take another trade if the setup presents itself. If it doesn't, I'll get off the charts. If it does, I take it and lose again. When my total loss for the day is $250, I will not take any more trades and I'll get off the charts. This is usually not what happens unless I take a partial and then get stopped out. But if a win is greater than 250 on the day, then I can call it a day and I'm done. Normally, with how I trade, if I risk 250, it's normally a minimum of a 1 to 4 RR, so I'll be making like a 1,000. I'll literally only be winning 250 on the day if I take a partial and then get stopped out. But that's not normally how it goes anyways. But basically, let's just say I took a partial of $100. I can allow myself to risk another trade to make a win. If I get break even on a trade, I can look for another setup with the exact same risk. That's pretty self-explanatory, but the reason I say the exact same risk is because let's say I trade with a $150 risk and I lose. That means I can look for another trade, but I'm going to de-risk and maybe risk $100 rather than 150. So this is my personal risk management settings and profile that I have for myself to make sure that I don't get too greedy, I don't lose too much, and I always trade for the next day to make sure my accounts are still there for tomorrow. I still have equity and capital to trade with tomorrow and to just not be irrational and stupid. So if you guys have any other questions, any other general questions on risk management, or maybe some other videos you want to see, let me know and I'll make them.